I'd like to invite Michael Lerner, who's a mentor, a friend, the founder of Commonweal and many of its programs to start us off. Michael?
Thank you so much, Oren. Um, it's quite extraordinary to be with all of you. I am so grateful. There's a tradition actually in insight meditation where teachers are encouraged to write out what they're going to say in order to make good use of everybody's time. And I've done that this time because I want to say a number of things and say them succinctly. The first thing I want to say is how grateful I am to be with you after a life saving surgery 4 months ago for an abdominal aortic aneurysm. It has been a life changing experience, and I've learned so much from a close encounter with mortality, as so many people have in our beloved community. And how grateful I am for the Commonweal community and all the support, and for the extraordinary leadership team of Oren and Arlene and Vanessa and Ramin, and for literally all the staff and program directors. It's such an extraordinary community after 44 years. Um, the second thing I want to say is I'm grateful that our country has returned to some modest measure of sanity. But we have much work to do to get this right. So we cannot begin to sit back and relax. We have the chance, just the chance, to get this right, or at least get it as right as we can. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the times we're living through. It's been so hard for so many people in our community and around the world. There's been so much suffering. At the same time, we know that unmerited suffering has a profound capacity to bring out the best in us, to bring us toward the light. And that is true of individuals, of communities, of nations, and even of civilizations. It's by no means always true. Things can go badly, but it's possible that this suffering is going to bring us toward the light. And really, that is the work of Commonweal, the work of healing ourselves and healing the earth, of bringing us toward that light. One of the things we know is that in suffering, we heal best in community. That's something Rachel Remen has been saying for many years. It's been true in the Cancer Help Program for 34 years. It's equally true in Anna O'Malley's healing work in the garden, in our healing circles work with Diana Lindsay and many others that is moving out around the world. So we have the skills and the potential to really make at least a modest contribution in the face of this suffering. The fourth thing I want to talk about is resilience. Now, this is a holiday gathering, and I will touch on this lightly. But the simple truth is that COVID and all its ramifications are not the only thing that we face. The truth is that we face this whole web of interacting global stressors: climate change, refugee crisis, technologies that threaten jobs and freedom, the rise of authoritarian governments, the ever greater concentration of wealth, the radical disjunction between our economic system and the natural world. And the truth is that these forces are interacting with ever greater unpredictability and force. So the future shocks are likely to keep getting stronger. This is the world we live in. This is the truth, and we know it. So the true question at this time of year and for all of us is how we can live lives of kindness and compassion, consciousness and wisdom, and joy and service in such dark time. Martin Luther King said, "The arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice." I don't regard that as a promise, but it's a possibility, and it's ours to work our way toward it. It's also well said that let no good crisis go to waste. The global poly crisis we face is the mother of all good crises. So if we are committed to not putting it to waste, we really need to work with clarity, courage, and compassion as we seek better ways to serve. Now, when we speak of the global poly crisis, it can make us feel paralyzed by the enormity of the challenge. But the truth is that the real work is done at the personal and community level. The real solutions are emerging around people just like us, and communities just like ours around the world. So the real question for each of us in these holy days that are upon us, this turning of the light, is what each of us can do in this coming year to discover better ways to live lives of service and self-remembrance, no matter what the challenges we face. How can we help our families and friends, our coworkers and communities discover what we have in common that brings out the best of us, so that when our time comes to lay our burden down, we will be able to give thanks for having lived lives of purpose and service in love and peace and joy. Many of you know the beautiful song by James Taylor, Shed a Little Light, and the lyric that goes, "Let us turn our thoughts today to Martin Luther King and recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth, ties of hope and love, sister and brotherhood, that we are bound together with a desire to see the world become a place in which our children can grow free and strong. We are bound together by the task that stands before us and the road that lies ahead. We are bound and we are bound." George Fox, the founder of the Society of Friends, the Quakers, when he climbed Pembleton Hill and had his vision, saw that there is God, that of God in every person. To speak less theologically, we could say there is that of the light in every person. Now, one of the things I love about the Quakers, the Society of Friends, is that they've never been many. There are literally actually 210,000 in the world today, and half of those are in Africa, interestingly enough. Yet they have been this very small number of people, 200,000, in the forefront of every movement for peace, for justice, for ending slavery, for prison reform, and for the environment. They believe it is not enough to witness in our hearts and minds. We must show our true faith by the work of our hands. And how do Quakers worship? They gather in circles. They sit in silence. They speak their truth into the middle of the circle. And they listen patiently and generously with astonishment at how many ways the light can manifest in different people. And how do they live? They live kindly. They live frugally. They speak truth to power, and they live by the power of nonviolence, the way of Tolstoy, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and so many others. So sometimes I just wonder if whether what we have been creating over these past 44 years is simply another nonprofit organization, or whether it might prove to be a community that is destined to transcend any single organization, whether it may not become an example among many other examples around the world, but an example of what a society or community of friends might look like, but reimagined freshly for our time. I wonder what it would look like if it turned out that we were more than an organization, that we were a community of friends. Might our cosmology be something like Thomas Berry's story of the universe, which our friend Mary Evelyn Tucker has worked so hard to continue to make available, a science-based cosmology of awe and wonder that all people could agree was beautiful and true? Might our concept of the numinous be constructed so that it could speak to secular and scientific, as well as spiritual people of all faiths and beliefs? Might its moral code affirm the radical equality of people of all genders and colors and belief? Might the moral code simply affirm kindness, consciousness, and service as the values of the heart, the mind, and the work of the hand? Might it have what the Catholics call an option for the poor, a fundamental commitment to justice? I name these 4 precepts just as examples of what might bind a community of friends together: a story of the universe as a cosmology of awe, a belief in the light in every person, a moral code that affirms kindness, consciousness, service, and the radical equality of all people, and an option for the poor and an everlasting commitment to justice. A story, a belief, a code, and a commitment to justice. Perhaps those 4 things. I think of this time of the solstice, of the return of the light, as a time to recognize the cosmological affirmation that the light returns again and again I'll end with a quote from a paraphrase from Oscar Ichazo, the Bolivian mystic who discovered the Enneagram of personality. And we could say this quote builds, this paraphrase builds on Thomas Berry's story of the universe and gives it an element of deep mystery. And here's the paraphrase, and then I'll re-summarize it. We best understand true reality when we become aware that the cosmos objectively exists, that it is moving with direction and according to fixed natural laws, that these laws are not cold since they create life, but are based in love, that this is true whether we understand it or not, that we experience this reality most fully when we experience each moment fresh, that this reality flows with a certain force, and that the easiest way to deal with this force is to move with it. In other words, the cosmos is the ultimate reality. It unfolds according to immutable laws. Those laws are based in love. This reality flows with a certain force, whether we acknowledge it or not. And the best way to deal with this force is to move with it. This is what I personally have come to believe, that we are ultimately more than an organization, that we are a community of friends, that we share certain core beliefs and values that I've tried to hint at, and that we may have many decades of spirit and service work ahead of us. That is my hope. I won't live to see all of that, but I can hope for it, work for it, and pray for it. And so can each of you.